Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. I'm back with another video for you here for Fantasy Football Draft Month. Most of the content that I put out is daily fantasy centric. This is going to be more for your fantasy football drafts. If you're drafting your friends and family leagues, if you're drafting your best ball leagues or your national leagues on FFPC or any of the big jackpot national leagues, this is my version of a my guys video, my dudes, so to speak. These are my highest drafted players at each individual position. I'm going to go through them one by one, talk a little bit about them. If you've watched the other videos that I've put out so far leading up to football season this year in 2020, you know who most of them are going to be. I've done about 28 drafts so far since all the best ball sites have started to go. Obviously, Underdog Fantasy is where I've spent the most of my drafting time because they've been out a little bit longer than the other ones. I've been drafting on DraftKings as well, and FanDuel just came out with their product. I have not checked that one out either. But wherever you're drafting, if you're drafting for best ball using the DFS sites, those are the three that have the most best ball drafts and the highest prize pools with the highest payouts. So you're going to have to figure out where you go. For those of you who don't know what best ball is, it's a non-transactional league. There's no trades, there's no waivers, you don't set a lineup. What ends up happening is you draft an 18 or a 20-man team, depending on the site that you're on. There's no kickers, there's no defense in these leagues. And the site will essentially put together the best fantasy lineup that it can every week for you, retrospectively, based on who scores the most points. So if you have three quarterbacks, quarterback A scores 25, quarterback B scores 20, and quarterback C scores 18 points, it will play the 25-point quarterback. It's a total points league. You can play them with full season leagues, which end at the end of week 16. Or you can play the tournaments, which are kind of where I really like to play because I want to go for the biggest money that there is, where you have a 13-week regular season. You have to win your leagues. Some of them you can come in second place to get into the big dance, which is week 14, 15, and 16, where you have to basically survive in advance to get yourself into that final 16-week or that week 16 championship slate. And there's things that you want to do in terms of correlation. We have a draft strategy video that you can go check out as well. I'll try and make a card for that right up here. So you can click on that one if you want to see the optimal draft strategy. I did that video with Adam Levitan from EstablishTheRun.com. We talked all about what our favorite draft strategies were. But here are my dudes. These are my guys, the ones that I have ended up drafting the most through all of the drafts that I've done so far in 2020. Lamar Jackson leads it off. I am typically a wait for quarterback guy, but if I can get a quarterback one and a running back one in the same position, I'm probably going to jump on that. And I have this year every time I've had a top 2-3 pick in drafts. Not every time, but a lot. Frequently enough that Lamar Jackson has ended up being one of my higher owned quarterbacks. Now, quarterback is not a position where I'm going to have 50, 60, 70% of one player. It just doesn't shake out that way. I like to correlate my drafts. I try to take quarterbacks that are stacked with multiple pass catchers on their team, especially when it comes to best ball, because I can capture all the upside on any given week. If a team scores 40 or 50 points and I've got that stack, I'm probably going to end that week with the highest scoring, which is going to push me up the charts and in those tournaments, put me in the best position to get through. Lamar Jackson pairs very well with Mark Andrews, with Marquise Brown, who right now, based on ADP, you can actually get that triumvirate and come out of this with one of the best stacks of the best teams that's out there. One of the highest scoring offense, going to have the highest team totals most weeks of the year. And like I said, you get RB1 stats from Lamar Jackson if he can maintain what he did last year. I expect that efficiency to come down. He's not going to maintain a 9-10% touchdown percentage on all of his throws, but I expect him to throw a little bit more this year. If he tops out at 28 touchdowns passing, his rushing stats are going to balance it out, and he's still going to be a QB1 or QB2 on the year, and his pass catching guys are going to be right there with him. My second highest owned quarterback, and there's a bunch of them in this pool, is Deshaun Watson. Right behind him are guys like Dak Prescott and Jared Goff and Ben Roethlisberger, because like I said, I don't really load up on the quarterback position, but Deshaun Watson for me, again, pairs very well with a couple of pass catchers of his. You can get 2 or 3 of them, and you can also throw in David Johnson into that mix. If you drafted him in like the 3rd round, 4th round, you can get Will Fuller in the 5th, Deshaun Watson in the 6th, Brandon Cooks in the 7th, and have yourself a nice Houston Texans stack. And the reason that I like this stack, A, they lost a ton of targets with Hopkins going to Arizona. That opens up an awful lot for the pass catchers. 2, you get Deshaun Watson, who can do it with his arms and his leg, or his arm and his legs. I always like the rushing, the upside of a rushing quarterback, especially when that guy has the potential of getting into shootouts. And judging by the talent on the defensive side of the ball, Houston is a team, as talented as they are on offense, their defense does not look like it's going to be able to stop very many people. So you've got an extremely talented offense, a defense that should give up a lot of points, which could mean a lot of games that end up with over 50, 55, and possibly up around 60 real life points. More points scored, the better it is for the offense. The more they have to either keep their foot on the pedal, or they have to really, jam it down on the gas to get, if they're in catch-up mode. A lot of great things coming for this Houston Texans offense. In my opinion, I've put a lot of eggs into that basket personally, and that's where I've ended up. Now, picking at the top of drafts, when I'm looking at running backs, Ezekiel Elliott is somebody that I have actually ended up on a lot this year, because if I'm picking second, third, or fourth, I'm usually taking Ezekiel Elliott in that spot. If I get the 2 spot, I'm going to take Ezekiel Elliott over Saquon Barkley. That may end up burning me. Saquon is a great back. It's not meant as a slight on him. I just have Zeke a little bit higher than him in my personal rankings. If he falls to me at 3, I'm taking him at 3. And if he falls to me at 4, I'm taking him at 4. This is a similar situation, albeit in a very different player's body, than the decisions I was making last year, when if I got the number 1, number 2, or number 3 pick, I was prioritizing Christian McCaffrey. I ended up with like 33 or 35% Christian McCaffrey in my drafts last year. Same sort of a situation for me with Ezekiel Elliott. I'm taking a stand here on him. His ADP means he's usually going 3. Christian McCaffrey goes 1. Barkley goes 2. He ends up 3. But when I get that number 2 pick, maybe 60, 70% of the time, I'm going Elliott over Barkley. So I've ended up with way less Barkley than I would normally have with the number 2 pick drafts that I've gotten. And there are drafts where he falls to 4, where somebody just prioritizes one of the other backs above him at the 3 pick. They don't like Ezekiel Elliott for whatever reason. I am personally very high on this Cowboys offense. I think that they are going to do amazing things. They're going to score a lot of touchdowns. And Ezekiel Elliott has been one of the highest volume backs in the league for the last couple of years. If he gets his 22 to 26 carries, gets 4, 5, 6 targets a game, and all the end zone usage that he's gotten the last 2 years, we're looking at a guy that, if he stays healthy, and right now, currently, as we stand, as I'm recording this on the 21st of August, he is completely healthy again, he is going to eat. A late round running back that I've ended up on a lot is Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay is sitting in a position where people thought that because Melvin Gordon was going to come to this team and get paid what he got paid, that Phillip Lindsay was just going to be tossed to the side and holding his helmet the entire time. But that's not what the beat writers that are watching the practices are saying. I don't expect Lindsay to get the high leverage targets that he got the last couple of years. I think that Melvin Gordon's going to get the goal line work, and I think he might get the mop-up work in games that they're way ahead in the fourth quarter. But Lindsay's carved out a role on this team, and at his ADP, which is currently 10th or 11th round in most drafts, you're getting somebody who could get 40 to 45% of the running back touches on his team. Absolutely great value, and I've ended up with almost 60% of him throughout my drafts. And the last running back that I have here on today's list, not the last running back that I have, but I mentioned David Johnson before. I'm very high on this Houston Texans offense. On brand for me, I guess, as I've always been on team David Johnson. I love his upside. I'm hoping that he's not shot. And maybe this is me drafting with my heart and not my wallet. But based on the way that the Texans have utilized their running backs in the past, and based on the way that David Johnson's game profiles, it fits in very well with this Texans team. He should see enough targets to be viable in PPR or half PPR, should get the goal line work. And if the running backs that have sat there before him, Lamar Miller, Carlos Hyde, everybody else, has been viable on this Texans offense on a week-in, week-out basis, David Johnson is more talented than any of those backs that they've had the last few years. They gave up an awful lot to get him. I expect O'Brien to at least roll him out there. And as I said, I expect this Texans team to be in a lot of shootouts in 2020. My highest owned early round wide receiver has been Tyreek Hill. If I'm picking 10, 11, or 12, there are drafts that I go running back. But my options for upside in a best ball league, which is essentially all I draft, is best ball leagues. I'm not playing friends and family leagues anymore. There's a couple of season-long transactional leagues, but with as much DFS as I play, I can't just be a hands-on owner and I end up missing waivers and I end up doing so. Like, best ball is the way that I play. It's my favorite way to play. And in best ball, I need to shoot completely for upside. Now, I know that Tyreek Hill can have some bomb weeks, right? He is, as consistent as he is still a boomer bust player. 116 targets is not 100% what I want out of the top of the draft all the time. But when you consider his boom weeks can carry you to a championship, and the team that he is on, and what you can do when you pair a couple of players with him, Tyreek Hill allows me the opportunity to go for that Chiefs stack early. In the chances that I get the 10-11 pick and I'm not in love with any of the running backs that are there, I can come out of the draft with Tyreek Hill. The second round, high second round, I can come out with Kelsey, and then try and hope that Patrick Mahomes lasts to me to complete the stack in the third round. But even if he doesn't, I have his 2 highest priority targets in Hill and Kelsey. So I ended up with a lot more Tyreek Hill than I thought I would. It's about 38% of Tyreek Hill. In the mid rounds, Terry McLaurin has fallen to me in the mid third and sometimes in the early fourth rounds, and I've basically hoovered him up anytime that I can. There are not many options in Washington for them to pass to. Terry McLaurin was absolutely electric last year. Ended the season with 93 targets. I expect that to balloon to somewhere around 125 or 130. Great value in the third or fourth round. Really the most talented wide receiver they have, the only guy that should get targets, and 7 to 8 targets, maybe 9 targets a game is not anywhere out of the realm of possibility for him to average this year. Many more double-digit target days to come from him, and hopefully their quarterbacks, whether it's Haskins or whether Alex Smith can make it all the way back, can feed him the ball as much as possible, because he is an absolutely electric player, and I'd love to see the ball in his hands as often as possible. Jarvis Landry is a value that I've landed on a ton in around the 5th round, especially on DraftKings in full PPR, even on Underdog, which is 0.5 PPR. Jarvis Landry just provides, again, way too much volume to ignore. He's not the same guy. He's been typecast in fantasy circles as he runs 2 3-yard routes, but he has not been that guy since he went to the Browns. The amount of volume that he got, even last year in a depressed Browns offense, an offense that I think kind of takes a post-hype bounce a little bit here. I'm not saying they're going to be a top offense in the league, but they are going to be improved, in my opinion, from what they were last season. 140 targets is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. 83 catches from a 6th-round wide receiver is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. I've ended up with about 50% of Jarvis Landry, because if you look at the other wide receivers that are around in that tier, if you are going running back heavy early, which is a route that I've gone depending on where I'm picking, I'll end up with 2 or 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds. Landing on Jarvis Landry as your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 gives you a whole lot of floor. May not have the massive upside of guys that you're drafting above him, but those guys aren't there in the late 5th or early 6th rounds of drafts, and Jarvis Landry still gives you some touchdown upside, probably more than the 6 that he scored last year. The volume is solid. The yards per game is solid, and you can take a shot on a player later for more upside if you want, but they're going to be way more boomer bust. They're not going to provide you with the floor and possibly not the ceiling that Landry brings to you in that middle round. As far as the late round guys, 10th round and later, I haven't really coalesced on one guy. So all of their ownerships are scattered and all over the place between 15 and 25% of a bunch of different backs. As there's nobody really late that I really love. For me, it's those 3 guys that I've focused on the most. They start out most of my drafts, and I've got sprinklings and pepperings of all the other wide receivers that come later. Where I have ended up later in drafts is on tight ends. I've gone a little bit premium tight end. I do have some shares of Kittle. I do have some shares of Kelsey, as I mentioned, going along with Tyreek Hill. Most of my Kelsey shares are paired with Tyreek Hill. But really where I've ended up is double tapping tight end in the 9th through 12th rounds. And where I end up on guys in that round is essentially Blake Jarwin. He's the comfort guy for me. He's my comfort food. He's my lasagna this year. Blake Jarwin has been where I've landed in round 11, sometimes round 12. I'm sky high on this Cowboys offense. As I said, he steps into a vacated target role of 80 plus targets from Witten going away. If he just takes those targets, was as efficient as he's been, with as little attention as should be paid to him, with Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield, Cooper and Gallup on the outsides, is going to allow Jarwin to just run free up the seams and over the middle, and with his option routes, he's going to be a very sneaky guy this year, because not a lot of people are drafting him over players that I think they should be drafting him over. So he is a very high value, high upside target for me. Tyler Higbee, my other my second highest owned tight end this season. Jarwin's on about 60% of teams for me. Higbee is on about 40% of teams for me. I'm getting him around the 9th or the 10th round. As I said, I'm double tapping tight ends late. A couple of other tight ends that I've ended up on here, guys like Eric Ebron. I've got sprinkles of who else? Ebron for the Steelers in my Steelers stacks. I also have Jet stacks that have Herndon in them. And as I said, I've got some of the premium guys as well. But that's going to round out all the guys that I have. Those are my guys. Those are my dudes. Those are my most drafted players through draft month. And I hope that you guys have the best of luck in your drafts. Good luck trying to correlate your players. Hopefully I'll see you out in them best ball streets. I'll see you next time. Bye.
He's a legend.